Hi, Dan Goodstein here with IRPA AI. We're talking contact center agent experience and analytics with NICE's Strategic Alliances Director for Robotics and AI, Gareth Hole. Gareth, good to be with you. Maybe you can give everybody a little bit of your background and what you do at NICE.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So I'm Gareth Hole. I look after the robotics and AI business for NICE in the UK and Ireland. I've been involved with enterprise software for probably about 25 years now. I have a particular focus on working in partnership with organizations to implement transformational change through the application of disruptive technologies. And that's involved in not just robotic automation, but real-time process optimization, virtual assistants, advanced analytics and AI. And I guess a lot of that time was focused on the customer services side of organizations. So involved making the end customer experience better, but also it's about finding ways to support the people that provide that customer service. Because, we think our jobs are challenging, but working in customer service can be a really difficult and stressful job.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good segue to the first question. When we first started talking about, this interview, you mentioned the agent experience. And my first reaction was, why should we care about the agent experience? Is it just the good human thing to do? Or is it about employee welfare and satisfaction? Or are there other reasons why you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, sort of putting aside whether or not we should care more generally about other people, we'll come back to that. I think there are some really good business arguments as to why the agent's experience is important. They are the face of the company, right? So they can have a huge influence on the end customer's experience. They can directly affect whether that customer buys more or becomes someone else's customer. And that affects revenue directly. So I think most RPA vendors tend to focus on cost reduction. But if you focus on revenue increase and customer retention, the positive business impact can be sort of 10 times the cost impact. But you can only do that with tools that support agents in real time and augment what they do. And at NICE, that's why we have Neva, the NICE Employee Virtual Attendant. And Neva really helps agents to achieve what they couldn't do on their own. And I'm talking literally. So it's not actually possible for people to do on their own what they could do when they're augmented by Neva. And that includes things like crunching huge amounts of data to uncover insight and deliver that in real time to the agent. It includes having a perfect memory, remembering any piece of data that was touched during an interaction. And Neva can also guide them through any process that might come up and balance the needs of the customer with the needs of the business overall, taking into account things that the agent might not even be aware of. So going back to the original question, I guess talking more generally, working remotely or in a hybrid model can be challenging. There's limited support. Your manager's not there. Your experienced colleagues aren't sitting next to you. But virtual assistants are always available and they're always present. So if you go back to sort of the early days of COVID and lockdown, one of our customers, an insurance company, they bought their 1,000 laptops to get people working from home, sitting at their kitchen tables. But they put Neva, they put a virtual assistant on every one of those. So there was no reduction in the KPIs of the agents. We even had, Neva popping up every couple of hours to make sure the agent was taking a break. They weren't working too hard as well. And during less busy times, Neva was there to help them, with coaching, with, delivering bite-sized bits of training to the agents, just to make sure they were engaged and motivated. So I think my personal view is that actually the more we care about the agent's experience, particularly in these interesting times we find ourselves, the more likely we are to actually help the business overall and the end customer. And I guess one of the best ways of caring is to give the agents the tools they need to excel at what they do.
Right. Yeah, and of course, as I asked that question a bit tongue in cheek, but you bring up a good point, and the other area that I think is relevant is adoption. We actually had a webinar last week about how to get automation programs adopted at an employee level within an organization. That's one of the biggest challenges with scaling automation that we see on our network, certainly. So what are you guys doing to really get the agents to adopt the technology? I'm thinking there's got to be almost a sales campaign internally around, hey, this is how it's going to make your life, your job better, right?
Yeah, and it's a really good point. I mean, buying is vital, right? But I think when people realize that the technology is genuinely helping them to achieve their KPIs, to achieve their goals, then the penny drops, right? They get it. But I think, a combined approach is sensible. We do want to automate where it makes sense. And that does tend to be, the repetitive and the mundane work that no one really likes doing anyway. But then to augment where people add value and do it to help them achieve their KPIs. Now, we do a lot of stuff with a lot of different businesses, but if you take, UK government as an example, we do a lot in public sector, and it's a very heavily unionized environment. We've had some really positive feedback there in the use of these kind of technologies, but it was done as part of a wider digital transformation program. And the objectives and goals were clearly communicated for the customer, in this case, the citizen, for the company, in this case, the government department, but also for the colleague, for the agents, for the people doing the work. So it was understood why things were changing and how they would change. And, we also included agents within the delivery of the solution there as well, to make sure that what was delivered worked for them at the detailed day-to-day level. If you look then at private sector, in the UK, there's a life insurance business that we work with. They have hundreds of agents, and we use Neva to almost create a sort of a dynamic CRM kind of system, an intelligent system, to help them to service customer interactions. Now, they had a lot of feedback. There's something like 30 small bits of feedback from them in the first week, but they were all addressed within hours or, overnight. So came in the morning, it was there and ready to go. And they could actually see that what they needed was being provided. Now, that's in stark contrast, I guess, to more traditional IT projects and the introduction of new systems. With those, if you didn't cram every single requirement in up front, you weren't going to get them. And that's simply not the case with these more agile technologies like Neva. So it's very important to treat this almost as a business as usual capability, not an IT project. What we've also found is that employees can be a good source of ideas, as they are the ones actually doing the work. We've even run competitions with prizes, for the best robotic automation idea, and we've got some great engagement from that. But that said, it's also possible to use desktop analytics to get a more data-driven view of where the execution gaps are. And that can give you a view of the things, that the agents either just accept, or they think they can't change. And I think that's probably something we'll have a chat about a bit later.
Yep. So what do you say to the skeptics, though, Gareth, who say, automation is just ultimately going to replace the agents? And when you have those conversations with the, why should they believe us? Why is this not going to come and take their job, as many of them are concerned about?
Well, I think, a lot of people get caught up in the hype, right? A lot of people have watched too many shows on Netflix in terms of what's going to happen, sort of robots in the future. But, in all seriousness, I think that automation can do a lot to replace effort. So take, for example, handwriting recognition. We did a project recently, which, was over 98% accurate in reading, difficult to understand handwriting and then automate it. I gather talking to, to some experts, people are only about 96% accurate in reading handwriting. So, it's once again doing something that people couldn't necessarily do. We even now have, Neva listening to customer calls using real-time speech analytics and intervening in real time. So there's a lot more that can be done now. If you compare the processing power of, the ZX Spectrum I had in the 1980s with, the phone in my pocket now, you can really see how far we've come in terms of accessibility to computing power. And there are just so many more possibilities now. But I think, after, where are we, nearly sort of 18 months of various stages of lockdown, I think most people still crave time with friends, with family, with other people, face-to-face experiences. And I don't think that's going away for the majority of people. And it's the same with business. People will tend towards the easiest channel, the best experience, which can be automated in some cases. But for anything complex or where, there are nuances that need to be discussed, then people can add a lot of value. And for certain businesses, that personal touch will always be a vital part of the customer experience. Now, I think people are actually pretty good at some things, conversations. We're also good at collaborating to solve problems in unusual ways. But, people aren't so good at other things. I'm certainly not, crunching huge amounts of data, to come up with non-biased detailed results. It's not something I'm going to be able to do myself. And that's where the machines come in. I guess, to answer the second part, why should agents believe us? Well, if agents achieve their KPIs and if they drive value, through that customer contact that comes in, like we talked about earlier, particularly around things like, revenue generation, customer retention, then there isn't a business reason to replace them. They're actually an asset to the organization rather than a cost. So actually, I think the more willing agents are to embrace the augmentation model to drive better results and actually focus on the more interesting bits of their job, I think the less likely they are to be replaced by the automation model.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great idea. So, the other question I had is, back to the kind of the company side of things, beyond the agent experience and some of the soft benefits of, having happy agents interacting with customers. Are there any tangible benefits though that you guys are seeing from the perspective of attended automation? And you mentioned analytics, from an analytics standpoint.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think a lot of RPA vendors focus on two benefits, right? They focus on increased efficiency and elimination of errors, and that's absolutely fine. And that's almost taken as a given these days. It's the currency of business cases because it's the simplest thing to measure. Particularly with unattended back office kind of automation. However, when you're looking at the front office, when you're looking at contact center, I think the benefits are significantly higher. I think the return on investment for attended robotics can be several orders of magnitude higher than unattended. And that's because the benefits are much wider. So they can include things like first point of contact resolution that can be improved between 10 and 30 percentage points. That's a huge win for organizations. It can have a really positive impact on customer satisfaction and net promoter score, 10, 20, percentage points of those. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of customer attention, a lot of new business for the future. If that customer is going to spend more time with that organization and increase their footprint of goods and services. I think also, the training time of agents can be reduced significantly, and that's a big cost to any organization. One company I was talking to last week, actually, they've managed to reduce agent onboarding time from 16 weeks down to 10 weeks using Neva, using that virtual assistant capability, because they could focus on product training and soft skills, not the systems training. Similarly, sales in service interactions can be increased in terms of the numbers of relevant offers, but also the sales conversion rate. If you look at areas like compliance, which is an increasing challenge that we all face, more rules, more regulations, things never get simpler, right? So that can be improved significantly in real time, so that you don't have compliance problems. Not at the moment. A lot of organizations measure them after they've happened. Well, isn't it better to stop them before they happen, or as they're having that customer interaction? I mean, one company we worked with was actually fined over £7 million for mis-selling about 7 or 8 years ago. They put in Neva to guide the processes, no fines in the last 7 or 8 years. There is a direct correlation, between the right sort of guidance and avoiding compliance issues. Even things like employee engagement actually can be improved. So the better engaged, your employees are, the less turnover you're going to have of those staff, which can be huge. It's very expensive to onboard and train someone, even if you shorten that cycle with Neva. So if you reduce that cost, that's a big benefit as well. And I guess more widely, the consistency of service can be improved. So we've got one customer that has a very seasonal business, and they effectively have to double the size of the contact center to deal with the work peaks. Now, they use people from other parts of the business, to help with that, but they aren't as experienced as the regular agents. So it can be quite daunting for them. And there is an impact on customer experience. So giving them the right level of support means that it's actually easier for them to pick up these new types of work. And more generally, people can pick up new types of calls, new types of cases much more readily and much more easily, and that gives you better flexibility. So I guess all this means really, with attended robotics, the virtual assistants, you can have a much more agile business, and one that's really focused on achieving the right level of customer experience.
And Gareth, what are we learning from these interactions? I'm assuming one of the benefits that you tout from the attended automation offering is better analytics, yes?
Well, absolutely, and I think this is a really fascinating area. So at NICE, we now have AI-based desktop analytics. And what that means is that we can automatically spot execution gaps and fill them automatically. So with Neva Analytics, it is fully automated and it generates its own data. So every action with any system on the desktop, when someone's doing their normal day-to-day work, can generate data about how they're interacting with those systems. So if you imagine someone, taking customer calls, working cases, tapping away for 8 hours a day, that's probably about, somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 data items of mouse clicks and typing into fields and drag and drops and all that kind of good stuff. Now we can gather all of that data together automatically and run some very clever machine learning and AI algorithms against it. Once again, all without anyone needing to, bring in a team of data scientists or anything like that. We've done all the hard work for you from a product point of view. And what that means is we can spot repeated tasks, we can spot application usage patterns, bottlenecks in processes, these kind of things. And we do this so that we can basically improve the quality of execution and the quality of service. And really, it provides continuous improvement. So there are intuitive dashboards for analysts. There's a complete set of desktop activity data if you want to, answer your own questions. And these are insights really based on real world actions, right? So it's not just based on someone shouting loudly about the one thing that they're not keen on. It's unbiased and it's factual. It is the truth because it is based on them physically doing the work. Now, for some of those process gaps, a business might want to address them in operational ways, coaching, training, restructuring the business, even whatever it happens to be. And that's fine. And it's a great use of those kind of analytics. However, we also provide a very rapid way to generate value, and that's where machine learning automation comes in. So we can automatically identify tasks and processes that are good candidates to automate. We can even score them automatically based on, a set of criteria about what we know is a good candidate. And that is not just for, step-by-step unattended automation. It's about, taking processes and actually providing the virtual assistant kind of stuff that we talked about as well. And we can then generate the automation solution automatically, again, including the connectivity systems, the different steps of the process. And it really provides, I guess, the most rapid way of identifying a process gap and solving that execution gap that I've ever seen. And the really good thing is that you can then deploy that solution, deploy it to the agents, deploy it into the business, and then use the analytics to actually measure the business impact. So you kind of end up almost with this sort of, virtuous feedback loop. You're identifying the gaps and the opportunities automatically on an ongoing basis, and that will change over time. Businesses introduce new products, new services, new systems. So there's always something new to make, more efficient to actually help with. And I guess, you can then prioritize those automatically, click a button, build the solution, deploy it, measure the results, rinse and repeat effectively. And in the past, I've had, some very senior people tell me what they really, really want in life is a button that they can press to optimize their business. Now, we're not quite there, but I think we're getting pretty close.
Very close. And Gareth, you alluded to something before around a couple spots about the difference between agents and human agents versus automation AI, but using AI and automation as attended automation as an augmented tool. I'm a big fan of the idea of customer service being a revenue generator, not just a cost center within an organization's, right? And if you can equip the team to do that, it kind of just changes the paradigm a bit, right? I was telling someone the other day about a very interesting experience I had with an online company where I called for customer service reasons, tech support reasons, and it turned into basically a whole review of my relationship, my business, and they got me to re-up a whole bunch of stuff that I wasn't thinking about in that moment. Plus, they did it in less interactions, right? Less marketing and time and things like that. Are there examples that you could share of how this is happening through NICE with maybe some of your clients?
Yeah, sure. As you said, sort of touched on this a little bit. I think, changing from a cost center into a revenue generation center is a great goal, but it is absolutely possible. That said, though, many agents take pride in the fact that they provide the best customer service, and they don't necessarily see sales as part of that. I mean, probably in the past they'd be right, but I think that it can be a positive experience to be sold something that is absolutely relevant to you, that addresses a need or solves a problem that you have, right? So when that sale's done in the right way, at the right time, and is executed flawlessly, so that your need is addressed or the problem just melts away, that adds a lot of value to you as a customer. Now, I think a lot of organizations have some sales capabilities, but they often boil down to a list of offers for a customer, maybe using predictive analytics to make it, a bit more intelligent, but it's often batch generated, so it's static. And that means that list of offers doesn't always take into account the customer interaction that's happening right now, or the problem that you have right now, the issue that you want to resolve, or something that's just happened on another channel. So some of the offers on the list may no longer be relevant. right? So, and if someone's trying to push something that's not relevant to you, bad experience, right? So, for example, that super fast fiber broadband offer, may not be suitable. Now the customer's just told you that they moved house, right? So there's also often, I guess, a disconnect between the service and the sales side of the organization. So even now, there are organizations that sort of hand off calls to someone to fulfill a sales offer, which is, the worst kind of customer experience, in my opinion. If it's just been discussed with an agent, why can't they fulfill it there and then? So what we do, with our customers, with the organizations we work with, we address those gaps in real time. So we know everything that's happened on the desktop, and even on that customer call, if we're using, things like real-time speech analytics. And that means that we can check real-time eligibility for offers. So the agent never offers something that isn't appropriate. Because we know what's happening, we can also provide guidance to the agent on when to talk about an offer and what aspects are most relevant to the customer. We can even help with rebuttals, arguments about, why it should be the case, why it's the best product. And we can guide questions to actually work out what that best offer is for that specific customer. So you're actually doing the right thing. And once you've got agreement, well, we can fulfill it then and there on the desktop, actually, rather than passing it off to a person, or indeed even a robot, an unattended robot. We can do it then and there, complete the sale while the customer is still on the phone or on the web chat or whatever channel it happens to be. We do a lot of this, for example, with telco and media companies. For example, real-time stock checking of the latest iPhone 12 before we commit, to selling it to the customer. Another organization focused on sales conversion rate, and they actually ended up generating an extra $5,000 per year per agent across the whole contact center. If you've got 1,000 agents, that's $5 million a year. Simply because they're given the right tools to support the right conversation to transition from a services call to a sales call. And that's before you got to the efficiency savings, because we actually also halved the time it took to complete the sale as well. But it doesn't have to be product sales, just product sales. We've got some clients that actually use offers to drive customer behavior. So, for example, registering a customer for a self-service channel to drive their future engagement. So it really comes back to doing the right thing at the right time for the customer based on, a holistic view of all of their interactions, all the data that you have available, with someone having the right conversation supported in real time by a virtual assistant.
Oh, great. Those are great examples, Gareth. I love it. I love seeing the industry go that way, and you guys being a part of it. That's great. Gareth, thank you so much for being here, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks very much, Dan. Good to talk to you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.